All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back here to Kickin It With Knuble. Mike, we are back. Episode 18. Got a little bit more Flyers NHL talk this week. And I know we got some guests coming and things like that. So some of the stuff in this episode is going to be probably come out a little bit early, for when, normally people would, kind of expect some stuff that we're talking about here. But Mike, how we doing? How are things?
Yeah, we're good. We're just getting through. They haven't fired us yet, so we're here. We are. We're back yet.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. A little insert here in the pod. I know this is going to be a little bit of a different episode. We got some other Flyers talk that wasn't as prominent in this one and some of the other episodes, but there's a trade. I'm recording this around midnight Friday. You'll see this episode obviously at noon. Flyers make a pretty big deal. They send Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost to the Calgary Flames in exchange for Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Peltier, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2028 seventh-round pick. So, obviously, let's look at this from the Flyers side. This obviously went mid-game against the Islanders, the Thursday night game. That was on ESPN Plus. Flyers did lose that game 3-0. Michkov gets benched in it. You're watching it, and I'm like, I haven't seen Frost in a while. And I'm sitting there, and then I see second intermission, Elliot Friedman, Andrei Kuzmenko is getting traded to Philadelphia, and I'm like, oh, okay, so they're working on something. And then I'm thinking Frost, I'm thinking Farabee. I'm like, what could be going on here? Then I see Farabee start at center ice in the third period, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess Farabee's not involved. Frost would make sense. He didn't play the last 8 minutes and 22 seconds. He was banged up. They said he was hurt. He said he's been dealing with he's been sick, illness, and all that. They do trade him. So, in midst of all that and figuring out everything, that's what the deal was. And when you look at it from the Flyers' perspective, you do move some money out. Farabee, making $5 million. Kuzmenko, he comes in, he makes $5.5 million. You trade Frost, he makes $2 million there. So Flyers do move some money out. I don't know, if this move is an opening move to something else that could be coming. I know the Flyers have to essentially, they're obviously going to try and move money in different ways, and this was one of the ways they had to do it. I didn't think they were going to get a first-round pick back for this. I'm glad it was a second-round pick, more because I think 4 first-round picks would have been a little too much because this isn't like that deep of a draft. You know what I mean? So, when you look at it in the return, Kuzmenko, he's a UFA at the end of the year. Hasn't played a ton in the NHL. He's a pretty one-dimensional guy, very offensively skilled. Played with Michkov in Russia. That was part of it. That came out that was part of it. They're trying to get a guy to play with Michkov, and they have that in Kuzmenko. Jacob Peltier is a guy, 26 overall in 2019. Like, he's been a guy that's kind of played and been all over the place. He was sat by Daryl Sutter. I believe it was last year or the year before with the Flames. I think it was 22-23. He's only played 60 games in his NHL career. Played like half of it tonight. He got sat out. Once that was tweeted out, that was kind of obvious that he was coming to Philly. I can't lie. It's one of them ones where I'm not mad at it at all. It's one of them deals. It's like, all right, like, it's a solid hockey trade. I think for two teams, they're right on the edge of the playoffs. Both of them. The Flyers are, they're like 3 points out. Flames are right there. I think the Flames are actually a point above in a spot right now, and they just won tonight. So, obviously with, all the other games going on and stuff. So it's two teams that are right there in the wild card race that make a deal. In terms of Farabee, he struggled. It's one of these deals where, it's honestly a little bit upsetting. Like, when you think about it, Farabee's one of them guys that, Farabee and Frost, I mean, it's the package for the Braden Chen trade. So the Flyers definitely lose that on that. And when you look at Farabee and Frost in their tenure, I mean, they both showed a lot of promise and a lot of skill. I mean, Farabee had some really good moments where, like, this guy looks like a star. I don't think Claude Giroux goes out and says he's, that someone's going to break his records just to say that. I think there's something to that in Farabee. These are two guys in the Flyers org that could have used a change of scenery. I've always been a Morgan Frost guy. I will always be a Morgan Frost guy. I wish him nothing but the best. I think Frost is one of those guys that could flourish in a good system with a good team and play with skilled players and whatnot. I mean, Frost was dangled everywhere around the lineup in terms of the team and everything like that. And I've talked about that and I beat that drum for so long. Um, it's definitely upsetting for sure when you look at it that way because it's misses in some ways. Like it's guys that could have been different. I am curious if the Flyers didn't have Tortorella here, if there was something that could have happened with that a little differently. So I don't know, but when you look at it, it's like Peltier. He's 23, he's a little bit younger. He's a guy. He's obviously he's a little bit of a project too. You got to figure that out. I like again the second round pick. Obviously seventh round pick, but getting a second round pick is good. You're adding more draft capital. I think when you look at Kuzmenko, I know he's a one sided guy. I don't know if that's a thing where he's just automatically not going to get re signed. I don't know. We'll have to see. The Flames do come back to Philly, which is interesting. March 4th, Farabee and Frost will come back to Philly for the first time. So that'll be interesting. But, yeah, Flyers make a huge deal. Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Pelche, both Philadelphia Flyers. It is a little bit exciting because it's like, all right, get to see some new players, see what they can do. I am excited for Kuzmenko. That little Russian connection there with Michkov will be pretty sweet, too. So we shall see. So, yeah, no salary retention either was the other big thing. And, again, the Flyers do move some money. Again, if they don't sign, Kuzmenko, then that would mean that they, take off about like $7 million or so. Pelche was on like a 1 year deal, like 800,000. So it's not like a lot of, money and stuff got moved and contracts and everything. And it's a little bit of a different kind of trade too, because I don't remember. I mean, outside of LA, the past couple of years in that like 3-team deal and also like the deadline and stuff when they traded, McEwen and they got Lemieux and everything. Like, I don't ever remember them doing a trade that far in terms of cities either. So that's a little different too for these guys getting traded. As they're going from the opposite sides of North America here. So it's a little different. But we shall see how it goes. Thanks everybody again, and back to the pod. Yeah, it's been fun. Flyers got a couple wins there, a couple losses. I know the last time we talked, Mike, we were kind of breaking down a lot of where the Flyers were at in January and whatnot, and it was past couple of games. I know when we talked, it was right before the Rangers and the Islanders, the back to back there, lost both of those games. It was funny because the that note that you had last episode was basically talking about like goals against and whatnot, and then that night the Flyers gave up 6, which
Yeah,
was
yeah.
which was frustrating. Especially when we just harped on that for a whole episode. But um, I feel like as the season's kind of getting along, again, everyone in that East is still right there, and it's separated, I think, from like ninth, where the Islanders are at right now with like 51 or something like that, all the way through to the top spot. I just think is through like 4 or 5 points. Like it's really close. I think it shows there's a lot of teams that have kind of played some bad hockey too, which is a little unfortunate. The Flyers are a little different in that area because of where they are, but pretty much everything we talked about last episode's pretty much staying the same at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to escape teams, right? If you're gonna win 2, lose 1, and it seems like everybody's doing that. It's really hard to get on a run. That's the only way you can escape the pile and climb. Is everybody's
Hmm.
beating everybody else, so nobody gets anywhere. At the end of the day, and it's just you've got a string. You have to play 700 hockey, and you have to do it for a little bit. And if you can do better than that, that's even better. But if you play even 550, 600 hockey, it's really hard to get away from teams. So I do think teams finding its identity. I think they're realizing, how close it is every night, and you can't even take a game, period off or even shifts off. Where you've got to just keep things tight, and again, they've shown they're successful when the goals against are down. And if they're
Yeah.
gonna get in a big, pond hockey game where you're gonna try and win 7-6, it's not gonna happen. And
Right.
so again, it's their chances are keeping it down to under 2.5 a game. Even 3 is hard to overcome a lot of nights for them. But so it's keep it under 3, and they're going to have a chance every night. And I mean, I guess you could say that for every team, but especially this group.
Yeah. No, you're right, and especially too because I mean, and that's what you saw the other night. The Rangers game, like it kind of got out of hand. The Flyers, like they had some chances. Shesterkin was great,
Mhm.
but they couldn't beat them. And then the Rangers, like they just capitalized, and that's the unfortunate thing is when the Flyers aren't scoring, it seems like everything then it's going in their net, and that's been the hard thing this year is like when they, like you said, when they give up goals, they lose a lot and whatnot too. So yeah. Just a quick little switch. We're gonna preview Four Nations because Mike and I we have a few guests kind of coming up in these next couple of weeks, and as that's going on, it's gonna basically go right into that episode that's gonna be like in the middle of Four Nations. So we figured let's just kind of preview it now.
Yeah.
Mike, obviously, we've talked about this before in the break and whatnot. I'm gonna ask you one. When you look at this, like as a former player and everything, is this a tournament that you would have wanted to play in when you were, playing in the NHL, or would you have rather had the break?
I mean, I think it depends on where you are in your career a little bit, and where you are in your thoughts and stuff. It's like if you're a younger player and you're going to be borderline, you almost are like, or you're older player. I don't know. It depends how. I don't know. I know, like I think it's quite the honor to be named to it, right? And as a player, I think
Hmm.
when the U.S. is asking you to play, you play, and I don't think there's too many people that say no. You saw one Canadian player fall out because Pietrangelo because he's banged up a little bit, and that's where you run that risk when you name this team and how guys are feeling when they do get there, if they could use a break or not. But certainly, it's an honor to play in these things, and I think you do go as anytime you get asked. But um, there's always that blend of kind of if you feel like you're on the end of the spectrum for certain nations, the roster. You're an older guy, and they bring you in for that, or
Right.
you're a younger guy trying to crack it. But it's pretty much an honor. But to play in that and sometimes you're not going to feel like physically you're like, oh man, I could really use that break, and you're a little bit jealous of 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 players who are getting that time off. But realistically, they're just as jealous as you, not getting a chance to play in this thing. So it's a great thing for your hockey resume. It's a great experience. It's only like 7-8 days, so it's not horrible.
Right.
Most teams will accommodate the players, whether they come back or something, give them a day or two, and kind of take that break. So yeah, I mean, I think, if you played your way there and you're recognized as a good player, then, it's a real good honor to play. That's kind of like a half Olymp, in between Olympic game a little bit, Olympic series. So, um, certainly a big thrill to get named to that team. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. I feel like for me, like I'm definitely excited for it. I think for the Flyers, it's good because they would have had three guys. It looks like they're gonna have four. Because Markstrom got hurt for the Devils, so I think Urson's going to be the other goaltender for Team
Mhm.
Sweden.
Sure.
So you have Konechny, Sanheim, Ristolainen, and Sam Urson. Making the team if that ends up happening for Urson. I think it is. I don't think there's been a confirmation yet, at least on the NHL website. There isn't yet, but uh, I look at like the rosters. I look at it's definitely best on best for sure. I think there's some guys. I think you're right. I think there's guys that probably look at it like they'd be great to play, and then there's guys, like you saw the clip from Mackenzie Weegar. He was like, "I have a great vacation in Mexico booked that I'm willing to cancel at any time." You know what I mean? So it's like I think you kind of get like both of those worlds too, and guys who really want to go and whatnot. Um, I know the NHL. I know there was talk, and I think I'm not sure who mentioned if it was Elliot Freeman or somebody else, but there was concern. I think with the ticket sales of it and whatnot. Does that kind of come as a as a shock to you at all? Just because of where it's kind of it's replacing the All Star game, so I don't know if people are gonna maybe take it as it's gonna be this high end kind of kind of really like just like total balls to the wall kind of event kind of thing. Because I think they've in the past couple of years the NHL's kind of I think struggled a little bit in terms of the All Star game and try to get guys to really kind of compete in it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think with that replacing that, it's kind of tough. Is that something that you agree with or no?
Yeah, I mean, you're holding the first 3 games in Montreal there, open with Canada Wednesday, US Thursday, then a doubleheader on Saturday. Everybody plays on Saturday, which seems like should be an easy sell, especially in Montreal, but, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's why they feel that ticket sales are lagging or anything like that. I'm not sure why that would be. And then, again, I guess you are kind of curious what the product's going to look like. Is it again? We were talking to Darian Hatcher a couple weeks ago, and he talked about the one in 1997
Yeah,
uh, whether it was
World
a
Cup.
World Cup of hockey, yeah. And we talked during the thing, like it was mean, like it was downright mean. The guys were playing really, really hard for a September game, and it depends how if these guys, it is mid-February, guys are beaten down like a little bit. Guys are a little bit tired, a little emotionally tired, a little physically tired. What are you going to muster up for these games? So it depends if the fans are buying that and that it's going to be a glorified all-star game, or is this going to be like, you know, very passionate, and great energy and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's the hard thing, on Saturday night, US versus Canada. I mean, that's going to obviously be sold out and be a great game and
Yeah,
in there. And then moving on to Boston, which would be another good hotbed, in the United States. That's another thing, and kind of repeat the same form, with a game on Monday and then the finals on Thursday. So it does end up pretty quick. It is pretty quick.
yeah,
Series, and it doesn't look like overly taxing. You're not traveling too far, but it's a lot of sitting around your hotel room and you know probably seeing some Instagram photos of your buddies on the beach or whatever. You're going to be a little bit jealous of it, but I guess it comes with the territory. Being a world class player, that's kind of some of the sacrifices you have. But
right.
if you're not in that championship game and you're playing on Monday the 17th and you're not in that championship game, you're going to be out of there. Tuesday, hoping to scrape some vacation up, but
Right.
yeah. So I don't know. The league will do some. Hopefully the league does some stuff. Away from the rink to keep these guys entertained. And let families in, make it family friendly, less painful, and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I haven't heard much about that. But it's hopefully players aren't kind of isolated and. But it's I guess everybody's kind of see what kind of hockey it is going to be.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. I think the biggest thing is it seems like they're trying to make it like a, obviously an event where people can enjoy it. Some of the cheapest, I mean, I'm just looking on Ticketmaster. This is for the championship game. Some of these tickets are going for like all the way up are about 195 each, US, and then down low are close to like 300.
Yeah.
And I mean that's on Ticketmaster. I think that's like kind of tough because I get it at the same time. It's like it's best on best, so obviously it's going to be a pretty high ticket price. But at the same time, it's something that's replacing an All Star game, which is again, it's been tough for them to get guys to really kind of, kind of go full force in that. So I don't know. I mean, I think I agree with, you know, basically what Hatch said last week, where it was like, you know, if you can get those guys and kind of like what you were saying too, if everyone can kind of play to their strength and kind of play mean a little bit, I think it's obviously a better product. Again, I look at the rosters and I don't know. It's going to be tight. I mean, obviously, I think Canada is, they're world class. Some of the guys on that team, it's incredible how stacked they are offensively. I don't know goaltending wise if they're better than some other ones. I think the deepest team, Mike, is Team USA, and that's not I'm not just saying that because I'm American, but that's they're just deep everywhere. Sweden looks good. Finland looks good. I mean, again, I think it's a really good product. Is there a team right now for you that really kind of stands out just in terms of coaching styles, and things like that too?
I just feel like the U.S. team has a little more pop, across the board.
Hmm.
A few more younger guys like in their prime here, like a lot of people in the States don't know Kyle Connor, but he's been really good in Winnipeg. And, he got Jack Hughes in his prime and, Austin Matthews and the Kachucks and on
Yeah,
defense,
Matt Boldy.
Brock Faber. Yeah. Yeah. Matt Boldy. You got Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox, Faber, McAvoy, and then pretty solid in goal, And I mean, on the Canadian side, I got Sid, he's getting a little older and Nate McKinnon's in his prime. Marchand's getting a little older and McDavid's in his prime. So I mean, sorry, I got the hiccups a second. I, you know, the Finnish guys. I don't know. I tend to know the U.S. and the Canadian guys a little bit more, but it's I don't know. The other teams have nice balance and they're nice players. You got to figure it's going to be a U.S. and somebody in the final, and I guess a
Yeah.
one game series. You're kind of playing this little round robin stuff can happen, but I mean, I
Right.
don't know. I see like the U.S. Coming out on top of this. And I just feel like they
Hmm.
got a little more like guys in their prime. I feel a little bit, and
Yeah.
Connor McDavid could decide to take the whole thing over at any time. And,
Hmm.
chemistry with him and Mitch Marner and, those guys from Florida have been real cagey lately. Bennett and Reinhart, they've been real greasy and gritty. And can they cancel out can they play like the Kachucks? And, you're going to get great leadership out of Sid and Marchand. And so, I don't know. On the back end, Kel McCarr is obviously a difference maker, and obviously Philly people know Sanheim, and up front, Philly people know Konecny. So it's going to be, I don't know. I mean, I just like the U.S. a little bit more in goal as well, and so I don't know. We'll see. Then maybe it comes down to goaltending, but it'll be, I don't know. I think I got the U.S. there in the final, winning it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely could see that. Again, especially if you know how deep they are and all that. And you're right. I think some of the younger guys can kind of help them too. As they kind of go on with it. Um, moving on. This was a topic that I kind of put in here. I was curious to kind of see where Mike you stood on this, and curious, I guess, in terms of other people too. The topic here: should the Flyers try and acquire JT Miller or Elias Pettersson? And the reason I put this and it's kind of one of them things that's like obviously it's very well known kind of where Vancouver is with these two guys. I guess we'll start there. Have you ever seen this before, Mike, where there's been two guys that haven't necessarily gotten along and it's been very, very, very public?
Yeah, I haven't. No, I haven't really. And I'm not super wise to this to this situation here. I mean, you look and it's about $20 million of their salary, a quarter of their cap
Hmm.
is they're not happy with, and these are they not getting along or whatever? I have no idea. So it feels like one of them's got to go, and they're again they're both pretty hefty contracts, so it's not that easy just to get them away, and it's like I don't know. It seems to be an ongoing thing. So it's like the longer you go, the other GMs like you're starting to lose like interest in it, because you're like, well, there's obviously something boiling under the surface here that do we want to get involved with this? Is this worth it for us? I mean, you have ample years, a lot of term left on both sides. If you have a year or two left, then it might be something that you could eat and handle and see how it plays out. But it's a long time, and I don't know, you really have to, if you're GM, you really, really got to do your homework on this, and you got to figure it
Hmm.
out and talk to a lot of people and get the deal here because it just, is this, knowing their agents or something? Hopefully, you got to deal. You trust their agent, and he's going to give you honest assessment of what's going on. But man, it's a lot of money involved, and I think that's the scariest part. A lot of money and a lot of term, and one
Yeah,
is a 70, one's over 77 left, and one has over 40 million left. So those are just really, really scary combinations, I think, for GMs. And you're gonna have to give up. You got to make space for all that, so you're gonna have to give up something good, and they're taking a flyer on something and there's a personality conflict in there. Do you want that coming to your team? And maybe it's a bad rap. Maybe their agents are behind the scenes saying, hey, this is a bad rap. It's not like this. This guy's a good guy. It's getting misconstrued. It's a tough market to have this problem too, because Vancouver, it's
yeah,
all they got, right? So it's
right,
just constant. It's everywhere. And I feel bad for these two guys because they're probably begging like one of us got to go or get us out of here. Like we can't, this isn't great. And their play is going to suffer.
right.
And it's hard. I mean, they want to go get a coffee at Starbucks without everybody like asking them a million things and
Hmm.
just kind of, it's a tough town to get invisible in, as far as if you're one of those two. But I got to believe the term and the amount of money is just a little bit scary for GMs right now, what they'd have to give up to get there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, you're right. I feel like the biggest thing, Mike, is like it's definitely hurt the team. Vancouver's they're right now if the season ended today, they wouldn't make the playoffs. They're 1 point out of the second wild card spot,
Yeah.
with 54 points in the West, and it's not like they can't get back into it. They're only 4 points back of third. There's a pretty huge gap with Edmonton and Vegas in between pretty much the rest of the division there in the Pacific. But yeah, I feel like for the Flyers, if they were to entertain any of this, obviously, the biggest thing, and we talked about this, was trying to get a number one center, and like that's obviously a big thing. If the Flyers were to do something like that, um, I could see them. It's not like it's one of them things where you saw the I can't remember which deal it was off the top of my head. It was the uh, Capo Caco got traded from the Rangers. Like
Oh yeah.
he went West Conference. The Rangers didn't want to trade him in the East. So it's not like it's one of them things where like, Pettersson or Miller wouldn't go east because there were, talks the other day when the Mikko Rantanen trade happened, and obviously we'll talk about that in a minute. That Pettersson could have been Hurricane. So it's not like it's one of them things where like, that they would refuse to, trade him to the Metro or to Philly. Um, both these guys, when you look at the Flyers, I guess, and you look at, their side of it, like you mentioned, Mike, it's longer contracts for Miller. He makes $8 million for the next 5 years. He's 31 years old, 673 career points in 873 career games. For Pettersson, he's $11.6 million contract, so 3.6 million more each year for the next 7 years. The contract is longer, but he's also 5 years younger. At 26, he has 443 points in 450 career games. So essentially, the pros and cons of this is that Pettersson is younger. It's a higher contract, but I feel like he'll definitely age into that better. Miller has more experience than Pettersson in terms of playoff games. He has 91 playoff games to his belt. And then both the con of this is that both of them have caused pretty big issues in terms of publicly, and even Jim Rutherford came out and said that. So it's like if you're the Flyers, obviously like you got to understand like the talent here and whatnot. If they were to try and get Pettersson, I would much rather enjoy that than JT Miller, just because of where it's at. I feel like Miller would kind of be like in terms of not in terms of skill or anything like that, but in terms of contract wise, it's kind of like signing up for another Sean Couturier, where it's like a guy who's on the back half of 30, and Coots has kind of struggled with injuries a little bit and stuff, and then you have a longer contract at that age, like that's tough too. But Pettersson, he's got all the skill in the world, and it's been one of them things where, I mean, I don't necessarily. Again, like look, for me, I don't watch Vancouver. I don't really see a ton of their games. If there's a late night game on, like I'll throw it on if they're playing. But it's one of them things where if I'm the Flyers, I'd like Pettersson. I think the skill is there, but I don't know if this is something that anyone wants to touch. And I feel like that's been probably the problem in terms of not really any moves kind of being made yet with either of these guys.
Yeah. And you know, if you do, you're going to give up a lot, and you got to figure out what you're going to give up, and
Hmm.
and it's, are you ready to do all that? Is it going to be worth it? And again,
Right.
that's a long time. I mean, 11.6, whether your salary caps, going up, it's that percentage will dwindle. The percentage of your cap's going to dwindle of that 11.6. If the cap keeps going up. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you got to pick one. You're probably going to go with the younger guy, expires at age 33 versus, one that's going to expire at 36, 37 years old. So, um, yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's a tough, but the salaries and term got to be kind of what's holding these two back a little bit from
Right.
moving on pretty easy. And again, what somebody else got to give up, and you know, I'm sure you're talking about that big deal this weekend. The three-way Chicago, Carolina, and whoever else that was, Colorado. Like it's
Colorado.
like,
Yep.
yeah, you've got to, if you pull on guys, you've got to create room, and you're gonna have to give up something. And that's where GMs are really like, well, is what's over, is that grass really greener over there when I try and go for these guys? Is it going to make us better, or is it just kind of a nothing move, or do we feel like there's something here? What's the advantage for us? Whether getting a
Yeah.
guy at the end of a contract and we feel like we're going to resign him, and those are all conversations GMs have with their agents. Be like, hey, we want to trade for this guy, but we're going to want to sign and trade. Like, would he consider here staying long term? And they have all these backdoor demands a little bit. That
Right.
help some of these things go through. There's a lot of side conversations to help these deals go through.
Yeah. No, 100%. And, especially too, because I think, again, I don't think anyone can deny the talent from those guys. You know what I mean? How good those guys are. It's just, can you make it fit in terms of contract? And like, I know we mentioned the Rantanen deal. That was crazy. That was one of them things I, did not really expect, especially when, he's coming to the Metro. And that's another thing the Flyers, kind of have to worry about is like Carolina is now really getting into that realm of really being a contender. I know they've kind of been a playoff team the past couple of years, but it seems like that was like their next step was get a guy like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things that kind of coincide. But we got a couple of fan topics here, Mike. A couple people sending some stuff for us, a couple questions. So this one comes from Garrett York 707. This is in the Maher Media, our Discord server. So I put some questions in there. I got a couple stuff back, and he asks, "What does the hype from games like the Cutter Gauthier game a couple weeks ago do for you as a player?"
Well, I don't know. Kind of not so much. I mean, I don't know. I think as a player, I think guys make their decisions as they make them, and there's always reasons. Again, it's that like um, as a player, you're just like it's just some young kid and whatever he doesn't want to play here, that's fine. Everybody kind of knows that they can go out and find people too. Like to replace you, and you're kind of like that's his business or whatever. I mean, I'm not, and it seemed like people were he was getting pushed around a little bit, and I mean, it's kind of funny. I think when you come to the rink, it makes. I guess if you're looking for a little bit of inspiration, it kind of makes for a funny game. Kind of like, all right, well, I'll see
Right,
what happens this game. Kind of keeping an eye out. How are we gonna? How is this game? How are we gonna react to this game? You know how the fans are gonna react to it, but what's gonna happen on the ice. But um, I don't really think it. I don't know. Kind of hypes you up one way or another. Not like it's. He has his reasons for doing whatever he did, and you're worried about yourself and your team and who's in your locker room more than anything than anybody who's not in it. So um, again, like I said, it doesn't. It's certainly interesting, and it's kinda like, a little subtopic that day, like kind of
right,
something that, there's a little undercurrent, there's a little story to this game, but overall, when you're playing, you're just concerned about your teammates and who's on your team, versus who isn't.
right. Yeah, no, 100%. I think that game there was a little more I guess pushback. I think guys like Konechny, I think kind of took it personal.
Yeah.
Because he signed here a long time and whatnot. But I think you're right. I think sometimes some guys it's probably like, all right, this is just another game. I think guys like Drysdale who are like involved in the deal, it's one of them things where it's like, all right, like kind of like F this guy kind of thing and kind of prove that he's better.
Well, yeah,
You know,
he would be the one that would affect the most, right?
right,
And there's guys too that have the type of personalities like who the hell do you think I'm going to whisper to him, who the hell do you think you are, and there's guys that probably want to say something a little bit or let them know like
right.
kind of like
And that's what Konechny did too.
yeah, just you're going to talk to him on the ice and be like I don't know who the hell you think you are, but
Right,
whatever, kind of move on, and then that's probably the end of it. The kid had his game, and
right,
and so, and he's just like, it's just another game, but you have, when you're playing that, you have kind of look in the back, the corner, out the corner of your eye, look for somebody coming at you or whatever. And you probably,
hmm,
probably going to hear from somebody, one of their upper level leaders on the Flyers team. And when he gets you face to face and, you know, like, who do you think you are? That's not a great move for your career. And you better, you
right,
know what I mean? Like, I don't know, you're not bigger than the game and start calling your own shots. It's not how it works, but and some people will be like, whatever, I could give two shits about it, whatever.
right.
So, but I think Jimmy Drysdale would have the one that would meant the most, for, obviously on the
Yeah,
team, who's going to mean the most for us.
right. No, you're right, 100%. So the next one here, this one comes from Saucy Banana in our Discord server. He said, "What is free agency like from a player's perspective? What factors are most important when weighing options between teams?"
Yeah, and so I think there's a number of things. It's never hard. It's never if you have family and stuff, and you're get invested in schools. It's really hard to leave like your town because and dabble in free agency because your family's kind of settled in, the kids are in school. If you're lucky enough to be playing that long, the kids are in school, they have friends, but you're kind of in that mode as a family where it's like we're like not vagabonds, but we're kind of, we are agents for hire pretty much, and that's the business. So you kind of have that going in the, you make friends and you try to explain, yeah, well, we could be gone tomorrow. And it's very unnerving to other people outside the game when you have friends outside the game and they're like, well, would you keep your house? They ask you all kinds of questions. Like, no, we're gone, like we pack up and go, like the circus is leaving the town.
Right.
But, so like factors, like when I hit free agency a couple times, once with the Flyers and once with the Capitals at
Bruins.
both Flyers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I was at different points in my career. I think earlier on, when you're mid to your prime, you want to make sure you're playing a lot and you're going to a place where you're going to keep getting a chance to earn another contract. And how are you bringing me in now? If you're in the middle of your career, you're probably starting to get some traction in your career and starting to prove who you are as a player, and you want to keep that situation going, and you want to
Yeah.
make sure, like the agents do a little digging, like who's he going to play with, where do you see him, always see him in our top six, and we see him this. So you come into camp, if you are to sign there, you come into camp with a certain amount of expectations. Now you can play your way out of that too, and if you're not as good as you should be when you're there, that can really hurt. So I think one thing is your role, that is very important. Um, and where you're going to fit in. Then kind of as you move on, you get comfortable. You kind of get used to being in, like I was always in the East. So I kind of really like playing in the East. I like the flight schedules. I liked, being at home, a lot more like in and out, like quicker trips and in and out, versus, sometimes when you play the West, your closest road game might be a 2-hour flight away or a 4-hour flight away, depending on where you are. And then you're dealing with time changes a lot more. I just felt it was a lot easier. I was more comfortable in the East. So now you're playing in comfortable arenas. You kind of know the rosters, and the travel is much easier and less time on planes and less miles traveled and more time at home in your bed and getting good sleep instead of getting home at 4 in the morning and you're home by 1 and you're kind of keeping a little bit normal rhythm to your body and all that. So I felt that was a huge part too, was the impact of travel,
Yeah.
and then you go, and then, most teams are pretty good. Then you evaluate the teams and kind of how they operate and some of their facilities and which they've gotten much better at letting people travel in and the team can wine and dine them, show the family schools, show family restaurants, take you to the rink, meet some people, which I think is great too when you're free agency. I think it's all a great advantage for guys in free agency that they are allowing, teams to bring players in and have a look around and kind of know what you're getting into. So,
Right.
it's all that depends where you are in life, I guess, a little bit too. So,
Yeah. No, I feel like that's all, it's definitely part of it. I think, especially the travel too. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Like I remember they were talking about, um, when you look at Dallas, like they have like the worst
yeah,
travel in the league just from where they are on the map and how long it takes to get to places and things like that. And I think for me, like it's weird, especially like when I look at like it's like being a West Coast team and playing games on the East Coast at like 1 o'clock, having games at like 10 a.m. Like normally,
yeah,
like you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's different too. Like when like it's 1 o'clock, but it feels a lot earlier. You know what I mean? So it's like
yeah.
I feel like that's one of the things that's a little different too. Um, and then the last one here, Mike. This one is from Sharil325. This is also in our Discord. He said, "What number do you think Cole will wear when he makes the roster?" So when Cole makes the Flyers, what number do you
well,
think Cole is going to wear? You think he's going to take
well,
22?
well, if you should be lucky enough to get there, I have no idea. For now, you get like a football number, and
Yeah,
I think when it comes to development camp, he's in the 50s or something. But
right.
that
I
is
think he's
not,
he's 54. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that used to be the kiss of death, when you show up and you had a football number, and that was like, some number in the 40s or 50s or 60s. That was kind of like, well, okay, this is where we fit in. Now I was watching San Jose play Detroit the other day, and my buddy's an assistant coach there with San Jose, and we're kind of chatting before the game, texting or whatever, and I meant to ask him. I go, holy cow, you guys got a team of football numbers, and like San Jose had nobody. I mean, the numbers are all over the place. You play in Montreal or something, the numbers you can't. Everything's retired under like 25. Everything under 25 is pretty much retired. So
yeah,
you're automatically getting a football number. But no, I
right.
don't know. For him, I don't. It's what kind of what they give you. I mean, I think certain, and teams are, equipment manager are wise to players that have had numbers going up through your career. And, if your timing works out, you're never going to get your number over a veteran guy, and you take what, you better have a B number right away. So I think at the end of the day, doesn't matter as long as you're there. And I know guys who have entered the league with a football number in the 70s, and they've just said, screw it, I'm keeping it. Like it's
Right.
good luck. I'm not
Yeah.
switching now. I'm just gonna, if I made it with this number, I'm taking it. And so um, we'll see. We got to get there, and we can get there. That would be, I don't care what number, as long as that number. You can't wear number 1, and you can't wear 99. So
Right.
you can't wear 66, can't wear 87. I mean, there's some you can't wear even more, but you get what they give you. And they're, and then, if you play long enough and you get a couple years in, then you might be able to start calling your shot a little bit more.
Right.
But any number, I really don't care. And I don't think he would care either.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then the last thing here, Mike, and this one will be quick. We just got trivia. So let me ask you this one. How many goals did you score in the 523 wins you played in your career? So out of the 1,000-something games you played, you won 523. How many goals did you score in those wins?
So did I score a lot in the win? So what did I score overall? It was like 260, 270, something like that.
No, it was more than that. I should know that off the top of my head. I'm slacking. Sorry, Mike. 278.
278. Okay, so all right. So I bet I've scored. So half of that's about 135-ish, 139-ish. So I bet I scored 152 in the wins.
You're close. It's 184.
Oh, 184. So all right. So it looks like I played,
and a lot of that is after 30, because when you came to Philly, it was like just goals. Like you just came to Philly and scored.
Yeah. That's why I made it another 10 years, which was good.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw 130, 180 something and 522 wins. All right.
Yeah. So it's 184. What was it? 278. That's 66% of your goals were scored in wins.
Oh, it's right on the number. That's weird. It's like 2/3. Yeah.
Right.
2/3, 1/3. Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's some pretty good
Couple
numbers.
Empty netters. Yep. We pile on some late. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. Pretty balanced, I guess. There's nothing out of line there. Pretty balanced.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thanks everybody again for all support as always. That's all we got for this one. Our last episode has actually been one of our best all time in terms of audio. Yeah. So thanks everybody again for listening in, and hope you guys enjoy it. And we'll be back over these next couple of weeks with some guests. So stay tuned for that. And talk to you guys all again next time. See you guys.
See ya.